Welcome everybody, I'm Burner. This is The Walking Dead Road to Survival, and we're going to have some stuff and things to talk about. And today it's going to be Survival Road Jesus and the recent changes that had happened to him. This is one of the things I really want stuff and things to sort of become. I know not everybody follows the Scopely forum or reads a lot of message boards. They play and kind of only use those resources when they have really pressing questions or things they don't understand. So I wanted this stuff and things, and hopefully some in the future, to sort of be a condensed version of information that people have a lot of questions about. So we're going to start like this. When Survival Road came out, you may have seen that there was a new Survival Road version of Jesus that looked like this. And you might have got really excited about this. You might have looked down there. You might have seen this adrenaline rush on your feet with the 75 AP and the Revive All with 35% of max HP, and saw that he had a leader skill that gave all ranged a huge bonus when taking damage. And you thought, finally, this is an OP character that us free-to-play players are going to easily have access to, and maybe it'll help, kind of tip things a little bit. And then a day or two later, you might have gone on and seen this Jesus, which looks the same, but you can tell the AR is completely different in everything but name. The recharge rate dropped to 56, and you see that now he'll deal 325% damage and 150 damage bleeding for 2 turns to a line of enemies, and revive only one teammate with 25% of max HP. So he's now doing damage, he's doing some bleeding effect, but he's only reviving one teammate and only with 25% of HP. And a lot of people question that. They're like, did I see that first Jesus? What was everybody talking about? If you came in late, you might not have ever seen the all revive. So there were a lot of questions, and Scopely released an actual statement on it. You can see here, Johnny Foxtrot let us know it's even titled Survival Road Jesus Balancing Change. As we read, hi everybody, we wanted to give a heads up that they'll be making a change in the immediate future to Jesus. They identified several concerns with the adrenaline rush and the current balance of the game, and wanted to change in advance of anybody actually being able to get their hands on him to minimize the impact. They understand would be disappointed, and they still want him to be, among the strongest, most desired characters in the game. But they kind of just wanted to make sure that we had a good touch on, balancing competitive play, and they're, confident they feel the new design fills that. And it says, as mentioned previously, we did our best to avoid changing characters once we have seen them, but in this case they felt it was necessary. And then it even lists their Survival Road Jesus. So this whole point about changing once we've seen them actually came up with some good dialogue in the Scopely forum that I want to include. So here it is from a poster, The Survivor, who brings up this quote, and it's hard to tell here from the first one, but he later makes a statement in another post. Let me throw that up real quick. In this one, it's more clear what he's talking about. He's talking about in the past, a version of Tess was made visible before anybody got the character, that was far superior to the version that we actually got, and so a lot of the community was sort of up in arms, wanting this preferred, better version of Tess. And in the past, you can see he's quoting Scopely's response that this entire thing is a great example of why we don't change characters after release as a rule. Even the appearance of it, as in this case, is an ugly can of worms to deal with, where there are no truly good solutions that will satisfy everyone. And then, they apologize. And you can see the survivors basically said, I see this, gets thrown out the window when necessary. And he kind of has a valid point there. Dash, from the gang over at Scopely came back and says that, this is an exceptional case. Nobody is anywhere close to getting this character, which is very valid. Nobody's got enough survival markers yet. There's been no real reason to make significant spending decisions based on his specifics, which is, I think, interesting just that they acknowledge that there are spending decisions regularly involved in some of these OP characters that we see weekly being released new. And then neither of which are usual for a new character release. And that's a valid point too. This isn't something that happens all the time. And they even say here that they were very reluctant to make the change. The survivor comes back and explains, he understands sometimes, the rules need to be broken, that there are exceptions. He can't be upset about changes to a character that, again, as Dash even said, we were far from getting, nobody was right at the cusp of getting this Jesus. And it's also for the most part a free character that we're going to attain, so you can't really argue about it. But it's just pointing out that in this community, like we have a pretty long memory about when we feel like we are slighted, and that the people will remember that. He goes on to say, what particular rationale sort of played into the initial version that we actually did get a peek at. And then he even says, surely it's no surprise that the original AR was quite strong. Obviously, you will know that, in my new tune on the block video, we talked about it. Revive All is really big, especially because it was going to be a character we would all have access to. It wouldn't have really affected, just free-to-play players. I mean, pay-to-play players who have really strong teams already that are able to protect revives, we're going to be that much stronger with Revive All. Imagine somebody with multiple shields and then a Revive All, especially at that initial rate of 75. There's a good chance by the time you got to them, you might be in a hard spot and those shields are going to come back up. But it's pretty true of just anything with multiple shields. You get enough of them and it's pretty tough to beat unless you also have a pretty high level team. But still, the Revive All was going to cause some problems. Scopely responds back, that they're more concerned, again, this is Dash, that they're more concerned about sticking with the spirit behind the design decisions than the word of the thing. That of course it always helps to clarify and to give people the full picture, which I think was awesome of Scopely to do here. The deal with this particular rush was that it was designed when we first started working on Survival Road back in late summer, at which point Revive was a relatively new thing and the meta around it was therefore significantly less advanced. At the time, they planned a more aggressive set of skills for Revive. This seemed like the logical place to go for a best-in-class Revive character. In the context of the game today, it does too much to encourage never-ending Revive loops, which is true. You get a couple of Revives in there and some shields, and you're just going to get ridiculously frustrated and throw things and lousy battle experiences. Ideally, they would have done it before it hit live, but for various reasons, that didn't happen. And so, we end up in this situation, which my initial, sort of thought was, they'd been planning this since late summer, and they weren't able to see this being a problem before releasing Survival Road, which I think is crazy. It's obvious that a big part of this was a bit of the outcry of the Revive All. Again, you had, when we first saw this Survival Road Jesus, there were people on both camps. People saying he's too OP, these top players are going to get him, they'll never be able to get him out of the way, and it's basically just like taking a loss anytime you run up against that. And then people at the bottom were like, oh, finally, I can have a Revive, and such a great one. So it's hard for me to see how they didn't see this as a problem when most of us pretty much just instantly saw like, oh, this guy's going to be trouble, and you know you might not be able to work through a tough team that has him. So yeah, it's frustrating again. You know, in this community, we do have a long memory, and when you see them reactively make changes as opposed to proactively, it's a little frustrating. And it's obvious that a piece of this was in response to, you know, some of that outcry of his AR just being too much. But nevertheless, I mean, they give good reasoning for it, and they make a solid point. I mean, it would take away from some of the gameplay. He probably is a little bit too overpowered, especially for some of those top teams that would have access to him. The other thing I want to talk about that I think is good discussion, because I want to play this on both sides. You know, I've already acknowledged, you know, I'm going to use the survivor here as an example. He's bringing up good points for us as a community. Scopely, I'm acknowledging them for bringing up good points as a developer. But let's go a little bit more into it. Another thing they say is, you know, they wanted him to be a strong, highly sought after character, and they even put it in quotes, a best in class revive character. So we're going to do a little review. We're going to review the revives, and we'll just have a discussion. Is he best in class? Did they meet that goal that they're telling us they set out for him? I think I'm going to get these in chronological order. If I don't, you know, forgive me, but go ahead and put it in the comments. You can throw a little hate and get salty with me if I get them out of order. You know, first we had Abraham with his Revenant Strike, you know, 58 AP, deals 275 to up to 3 and revives 1 at 50%. Pretty badass. Came in with execution as well. You know, he's doing a solid damage up to 3 and bringing somebody back with 50% of HP. And that was amazing. Next, you know, we had this version of Herschel with a life or death. Again, same recharge rate of 58. This time, he was doing 450% damage to just one enemy and reviving one teammate with 60% of max HP. So, you know, a little less overall damage, focusing on one enemy, but doing more damage to that one enemy and bringing the one back with a little bit more HP. And again, with execution. So between those two, it was pretty well balanced. You know, it's kind of hard to say which one's better, and I would probably posit that it probably depends on what sort of teams you run and whether or not ranged is better than a melee for you. That's my opinion. Next, we had Sadiq, and Sadiq was unique for being the first multiple revive. You know, he has Meat Wagon. He's also known for having this very slow 106 AP recharge rate. He revived 2 teammates with 75% of max HP, and then he threw some crit out there. And it was also when we were seeing a lot of these Retribution characters, so he's got Retribution as well. And I feel like for the most part, everybody agrees that on his own, as a single reviver or without a whole lot of support around him, he's just too slow. Especially high-level teams. I mean, he's probably not going to be around long to be able to use this. If you're using him on an attack team and he's actually saving you, you're kind of stretching the strength of your team. You're probably at your limits as well. So, you know, he was kind of weak, and you probably preferred either Abraham or Herschel. Then we kind of got a little bit of a game changer with Glenn, who was our first very fast reviver with Breach, recharge rate of 45. He dealt 275% damage to up to 3, you know, just like Abraham, and revived 1, but only with 20% of max HP. And again, he has execution. So for him, the trade-off was his revival go fast. You know, faster than Abraham or Herschel, but he's only bringing them back with 20%. So a marked reduction in the health you bring back. And a lot of people thought he was much better. You know, if you put a healer around him, you can support that really well, and it's not an issue that they're only coming back with 20% of max HP. And so I feel like at that point, people really argued that, Glenn was probably the top of the class at that point. Then we recently saw old Rosita with Adrenaline Rush Quick Reaction, and her claim to fame is being the first fast multi-revive. She deals 500% damage to one, revives up to two with 15% of max HP, and then she also has neutralize. And then so here you had this new, I would say, argument. It was no longer between Abraham and Herschel. Now people would sort of discuss, is Glenn with the very fast revive better than Rosita, who has, the multi-revive and is able to neutralize? And so I think that's, for me, that's where it stood. Again, I think a big piece of it's what teams you run. If you're running more ranged over melee, or somehow using more blue versus more green. Because I feel like you can argue that a little bit. Obviously, you can buff Rosita up to go off a little bit earlier, but having Glenn at a default 45 is pretty nice. So then we got Survival Road Jesus, and with the all revive at 75, it was pretty unanimous. He's probably going to be there, because you can buff that up to make him usable even at the high end, and that he's probably going to be there. And most people would have taken the fact that he's reviving all enough to sort of bump him over Rosita, and at the same time saying that even though Glenn is going very fast, a lot of times you're holding that AR anyway, because people might not be dead if you're in a attack team, and if he's on your defense, he might not be getting much help there either. You probably might try and kind of keep his AR a little bit lower. And so, for the most part, I feel like Revival Jesus, or Revive All Jesus, was pretty much considered probably the best revive. But this new version, the one that we're going to get, recharge rate of 56. So the same as Rosita, and he's doing 325% damage, and the 150 bleeding for two to a line. His damage is in between, Glenn and Rosita. He also has the bleeding, which, depending on if you're a fan of, I feel like you have to stack bleeding to really make it worth it, just because it takes time. It's an overtime thing, and it's all about doing damage the fastest. But now he's only reviving one, and he's only reviving one with 25%. He does have this nice bonus of the leader skill of doing a huge bonus to AP for ranged when taking damage, and so that can maybe really sway you. But he's not a clear best in class. I'll leave it at that. I think he's in the running. He's in the argument there. I think it's definitely a three-way discussion, if not just a two-way. And the reason I say that is because if you're going to use him as a leader, I feel like a revive, much like a shield, is something that you want to be a surprise, at least for that first time. You don't want people to be able to. You try to limit how much an enemy can prepare against like a defense team. If it's a attack team, it's completely different, because you're going to get to go first. It doesn't matter. You're the one choosing what you go into. But from a defense team standpoint, the least amount of information you can put up there, the better. And so it's a little arguable from that point. And defense is one of the most important parts in the game, because attacking's easy. It's a lot easier to attack a stronger team than it is to defend that same team. And so that's really where a lot of the game is changed and managed, is what you can defend against. And so, is he clear-cut best in class? I don't think he is. Is he very quality and at the top of the class? He definitely is. So I think overall, yeah, some people might be upset about this change, but yeah, I agree with Scopely on this one. Anytime you have to do this, you're not going to please everybody. There's people that thought it was too OP and would kind of hurt the game, throw off some of the balance, and I think those people were right. But I do understand people that saw one version and are upset that they're not getting that version. But I think we're still getting a quality character here with Survival Road Jesus. You're still going to be able to use him in your team, especially for people who, don't have those top teams that are just filled with premier recruits. And this is going to be a quality guy to have in your team. You're going to be able to use him. He's going to be good for a long time, especially from some of the things we heard Scopely say in those forum posts about, where the revive skills have actually gone and them trying to avoid revive loops. And I don't know if we're going to see anything too much stronger than this for a good while. So he should be a good part of any team that gets him. But let me hear your thoughts on it. Go ahead and comment on anything we got here, all the way from the top and the change through the things they made and sort of the words they used in the past about setting rules and now kind of having to change them. But let me know what you think about the Jesus we are going to get. Let me know if there's any difference, and definitely let me know, is he best in class? Is this Jesus best in class? Where do you put him among these 6? I'm going to leave this screen right here at the end of the video so you can take a peek. Look at all of our revives we have out there. How would you rank them up? What do you think? As always, if you guys enjoy, please like. If you're new and you want to see more, go ahead and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.